All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you everybody for joining today's webinar. My name is Skylar Baber with Voice for Adoption. We're an organization that is based in Washington, D.C. that has the mission and goal of advocating for over 108,000 children currently in foster care waiting to be adopted. We have many different projects and initiatives, and we partnered with Dave Thomas Foundation to kind of pull this together. So today we're talking about two publications as well as initiatives around the country, and we have experience from some really impressive individuals who are doing permanency work around the country. So this is in regards to our permanency in the courts, a youth-driven perspective. We have speakers today, Steve Rideout, who is a retired chief judge of Alexandria, Virginia, Christy Kelly, who is a senior staff attorney at the American Bar Association, Ani King, she is a adopted alum as well as a team member at You Gotta Believe in New York City. Before we get started, just a little bit about my background. I've been with Voice for Adoption going on 5 months now. I grew up in the Montana foster care system, and I was adopted at the age of 25. So this is really important to me, this topic of permanency for older youth. When I was 12, I was told that I was too old to be adopted. So that really has a huge impact on a child, being told that they're too old to be adopted. But what I think my adoption has proven is that you are never too old to be adopted or to find a forever family. This publication is great in that it is something that the courts can use on hand. Today's presentation, just so you know, will be available on our website. You'll receive an email afterwards on Voice for Adoption's website, as well as the slides in PDF format will also be available for you to download off of our website at Voice for Adoption. On your right-hand corner or wherever you have your control panel, you will see that you have a questions section. If you have questions, you're welcome to type a message in there. We will be monitoring them. For the most part, we're going to wait until the very end of the presentation to answer most of the questions unless they're really pertinent to that moment. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. So this came around as a result, this publication and this project for Voice for Adoption came around as a result of the Preventing Sex Trafficking and Strengthening Families Act. Now, this act sought to increase permanency opportunities for older youth in foster care and recognize that APLA, another permanent plan living arrangement, or depending on the state you're in, it could be OPLA, was being used as a case plan, as in that was the solution, that children were lingering in foster care without really a permanent placement as an option, and then they would age out of foster care without a permanent connection. And as many of you know, when youth age out without permanent connections, it can have impacts that not only on their lives, but also on systems like corrections, mental health, welfare, all of those. And the other thing that we all know too is that for most of us that have children, when our child turns 18, they don't necessarily just have everything together and will never need your help again. And we're expecting youth in America that at the age of 18, if they've been in foster care, that they are ready to go, be perfect, incredibly successful citizens. But that's not always the case. We need permanent connections to fall back on. We need someone to call in a moment of crisis, but we also need someone to celebrate life with. So this is a really important initiative. So the Preventing Sex Trafficking and Strengthening Families Act, first, the law prohibits APLA as a permanency plan for youth under the age of 16. So that means that the younger youth who are lingering in care, that foster care shouldn't necessarily be their long-term plans. The law also makes it harder to choose or maintain APLA for youth 16 or older. So this means that, you know, for youth that are being told they're too old to be adopted or too old to find that permanent connection, that this kind of gives directive that we still need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to find these youth permanent connections. Because what we do know is youth and families have better outcomes all the way around. In regards to the law, an agency must document that there is intensive, ongoing, and unsuccessful efforts to achieve reunification, adoption, guardianship, or placements with a fit and willing relative have been made if they're going to use APLA. They also need to document that APLA is the best permanency plan for the child, and there also needs to be a compelling reason that it is not in the best of the interest of the youth to return home be placed in adoption, enter a guardianship arrangement, or be placed with a fit and willing relative. If APLA is the proposed permanency plan according to the law, they must ask the child about his or her desired permanency outcome. They must confirm that the agency is taking steps to ensure that reasonable and prudent parent standard is being exercised, and they also must confirm that the agency has documented that the child has regular and ongoing opportunities to engage in age or developmentally appropriate activities. So in creation of our permanency guide and the bench card for the courts, there are actually two separate publications. The full permanency guide is a lengthy document with lots of really great input. Voice for Adoption held an in-person focus group in 2015 with the former and current foster youth and alum who serve as the Congressional Caucus on Adoption Institute's interns. And they're a really dynamic group of young people from around the country with very, very diverse experiences. And some of the things that we also did is that we surveyed a network of youth, thanks to Foster Club. We surveyed 68 former and current foster youth, asking them various questions about permanency, their involvement with the courts, and we got really interesting feedback. And what we did find out is that there is definitely work that can be done to help these youth achieve permanency. There's work to be done to include these youth in permanency planning, in their court proceedings, and just to give them overall a feeling that there is efforts being made both on the system's part, but also that they have a say in what's going on. So just a couple of quotes are listed above, but I mean, they're pretty powerful. I had never had a voice in my case plan. Everything was decided for me. And this is coming from a young person. I wish that the social worker included me in case planning so my voice could be heard. So a lot of this is very basic. It's just making sure that a youth has a chance to voice and talk about permanency. And there were also some youth that had no idea what was considered permanency and that foster care or APLA was the permanent long connection. And something that's important to know about foster care too, or APLA, is that foster care was intended to be a short-term safe haven, not a long-term solution. So when we were researching and working with these youth, there were some barriers that we had to overcome when we're writing this. And so all of the recommendations put forth in our guide kind of addressed these barriers. And we simplified it down into 4 easy steps on the bench card. And a bench card is a document that the courts can use that's kind of a quick cheat sheet that lists easily what you can do to improve permanency and connections within the court situation. And it's great for judges, for court-appointed special advocates, and it's a great resource. So some of the barriers that we have are the negative attitudes. So negative attitudes are very common from what we've heard, so that this is that the youth is unadoptable. For example, myself at the age of 12, I was told that I was too old to be adopted, or that the youth are hard to place. We also have sometimes the youth make assumptions on their own end that they were unadoptable. And from my personal story, I was asked to be adopted at the age of 20, but after being told at the age of 12 that I was unadoptable, well, what basically happened is I rejected permanency because at that point I felt that I had everything figured out, that I didn't need those permanent connections, and that there was no need for me to take on that. But at 25, I grew up a little bit, and I have still never lived with my adopted dad. We just have a really close relationship. We talk all the time. And permanency isn't necessarily always going to end up being a financial burden or a high contract commitment. Sometimes it's just having roots or an anchor to another person. So you have to kind of overcome both of the attitudes in regards to permanency for both the system as well as for the child. We also had issues for a barrier as around with transition planning. Some youth reported that they had no transition plan put in place, or that their transition plan was basically independent living skills, such as how to get to the doctor, balance your checkbook, but there was really nothing in regards to who is this permanent connection? Where is this youth going to go over the holidays? Do they have connection? Does the permanency plan include, education? So with this, the courts and child welfare professionals sometimes focus overly on transition supports and not necessarily on permanency. Courts can help by expanding their efforts with older youth to incorporate not just independent living skills, but those all-around connections. So our third barrier was that there was high turnovers within the system, and this is something that we know is common and that is happening all over. And there are many reasons for staff turnover. The work is hard, the pay isn't necessarily the best all the time, caseloads are high, and it takes a lot of grit to be in some of these positions. A lot of the times our youth that were surveyed had multiple caseworkers, teachers, or professionals come in and out of their lives. As a youth myself, growing up in foster care, I had 6 different social workers. I only met one, and towards the end, when I became an older youth, I really didn't meet the last few social workers. I never had access to a lawyer, and at the time, in my state of Montana, there was a mandate that all youth in care had a lawyer. That's no longer the case now, but I never met my lawyer. And youth can also be assigned numerous judges, all of which have different methods for handling a case. I was never once set foot in a courtroom. So our fourth barrier is the lack of trust, and this can go both ways with the adults to the youth and the youth to adults. So youth report being intimidated by the courtroom, especially if they've never had experience within the courts, they've never had CASA involvement, they don't necessarily know what to do, and at the same time, anytime someone thinks of going to court, it's not really a positive outcome that we're looking at. Others report that judges showed little interest in the youth. And so this is important to remember, that we need to talk to each other on an age-appropriate level. I personally believe that youth have the ability to understand far more than we give them credit for. And if we feel that they're not going to understand, we just need to take time to come down to their level, find a more comfortable situation, and really have a serious conversation. There was a special shout out to court-appointed special advocates from our young people that were surveyed, that youth that have a positive relationship with their CASAs feel more comfortable with them advocating for them on their behalf. We're going to go into some further discussion on permanency. All of our speakers today incorporate aspects of what our permanency publications have. You can download the permanency guides online at voiceforadoption.org/special_projects, and you will be receiving this in an email. There is a digital bench card, which is a 2-sided document, 1 page, and the full-length Youth Voice for Permanency Guide for Judicial Leaders. You can download them for free, and again, we will be sending you a link here shortly. So now, implementing what recommendations are provided by our guide, and to kind of share with you some more collective experience, I'm going to turn this next section over to what works in the courts, and this is going to be retired Judge Steve Rideout. So give me 1 second. We're going to swap him over and mute me.
Skylar, thank you very much, and welcome to everybody. I'm Steve Rideout, and I was a full-time judge for 15 years in Virginia, in Alexandria, where we were involved with the model court project for the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges, as well as a model court for a best practice court in Virginia. After retiring, I've been a consultant on child welfare for the last 11 or 12 years. I've been a CASA volunteer on a couple of cases here on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, where I now live, and am involved in a radio program that I'll mention to you here in a little bit. The issue that I've been asked to talk about is what can be done to promote permanency. And from a court perspective, it's having an effective and efficient court process that respects all the participants. Those of you who are in model court projects or best practice court projects where you are meeting collaboratively, what I will be talking about with regard to the judges really applies to you as well, in the respect that as part of that collaborative effort, you can really have an impact on how the process works effectively and efficiently. But certainly judges, because of their independence, you can't go in and tell a judge what he or she has to do, but as part of a collaborative process, you can help those judges who are new to the bench or who may be doing this work as well as other case types to have maybe get some better or different ideas on what to do. And one of the things that I found most important for me in the process of reviewing cases was to look at those cases a day or two before I was in court so that I could go through them, understand what the issues were, about the plan, review the reports from CASA that always had their reports in on time, guardian ad litems who sometimes didn't have their reports in on time, made sure that the agency was filing their reports in a timely way so that we didn't delay the court process. But also, I was able to develop the questions that I wanted to ask, and I just used Post-its, little yellow Post-its that I posted all over the reports and responses to remind me of the questions that I had, because most of the plans that come in, the parties are in agreement, and it's more about me using my time as a judge effectively and honoring the time of others to get down to the details that concern me or I had questions about, just to make sure that I was headed in the right direction. We know what questions we want to ask of those present before we go into the hearing. With the children in court, try to connect with them. I found sometimes that they were reluctant to talk, sometimes not reluctant at all. But those who were reluctant, I would give them a chance. I'd ask a question and I wouldn't push. I try to wait for them to become engaged, and that was I found very helpful, because once they did feel engaged, they were not reluctant to talk, and we were able to get a lot of good information. Delay is the enemy of everybody. So getting reports in on time, objecting to continuance requests, making sure that everybody is ready for the case when it's called are important. One of the things that has been done for years around the country is concurrent planning, which means that the agency has one plan, but it also has a backup plan if the first one doesn't work. When I first went on the bench, we had substance abuse cases that I'd order people into substance abuse treatment, and then I was finding a year later the cases were coming in for termination of parental rights because the substance abuse process didn't work. And when we started, I started in 1989, we didn't have a concurrent plan. So we had to then start, well, now that didn't work, what else do we do? So, Scarlett, if you can move on to the next slide. One back. There we go. One thing that's absolutely critical in this regard is in looking at who the potential caregivers might be beyond the parents, relatives. If they are out of state, you need to start what is called the Interstate Compact of Placement Children process, ICPC, right away. That means contacting or urging the agency to contact the aunt and uncle who live in the next state to see if they would be willing to take that child. Because if reunification doesn't occur and there aren't any other options in state, you may have to be looking to that aunt and uncle as the placement. And the ICPC process takes time. And in order to, and you can't wait to start that once you find out that your first idea isn't working. With regard to the children coming to court, set those court hearings so that they can attend without missing school or sports. Or have them come even if they're infants and toddlers. I did a training up in New York once where one of the judges told a group of the other judges that she had an infant in court where the infant kept coughing and coughing and coughing. Nobody said anything about it. Foster parents, social worker, guardian ad litem, nobody. And finally the judge says, "What's wrong with this child? She's coughing all the time." And finally the foster parent said, "Oh, I've been trying to get my social worker to help me get an appointment with the doctor, and I just haven't been able to contact her." And so as a result, the judge says, "Well, you both are here. When you leave this court, you're going to set up an appointment for that child to see the doctor." So even an infant can tell you something. No cattle call dockets. When I first started, As a judge, I thought it was the right way to go, so that I just brought everybody in at once. When we started our model court project, I asked everybody, what could I do better? And the CASA people said, don't do cattle call dockets because it doesn't honor our time. So, get into time certain hearings. If your judge isn't doing that, suggest that as a way of making these cases work much more efficiently and effectively, getting people in and out of court rather than making them wait for hours. Ask the child, how often have you seen your lawyer or your guardian ad litem? Doing some consulting work in a neighboring state, there was a guardian ad litem there who would, on the day before the court hearing, call each of the clients that he had to see what they had to say about the hearing come up the next day. He didn't bring him to court. I felt as though that was a very ineffective way to really get the child's voice heard. Having them in court is much better. Limit congregate care, that's group homes, wherever possible, looking for relatives or important people in the lives of the child to help them have a better time in foster care. And understand that adoption, as Skylar has talked about, is always a possibility, no matter what the age. Skylar, if we can go on to the next one. Quickly, I know we have other folks going to be talking here, but CASA, you all do it. You see your child often, your client often between court hearings. Let them know what's going on. Lawyers and guardian ad litems, social workers, bring the child to court. Be sure to let the judge know how many contacts. When I found out that my guardians ad litem were not contacting the children, I told them they had to, and when they continue to do it, I told them that what they said wasn't important, because if they couldn't have contact and understand what's going on in that child's life, just talking to the child, 5 minutes before court was just not acceptable. Help the children to understand the court process. It's absolutely critical, because and don't just think you can do it once, because they don't understand it, or they'll tell you they do understand it when in fact they don't. So go over it every time you meet with them. Ask them questions after you've gone over it so that they can explain it to you, so that you're sure that they really do understand. Be prepared for every hearing. Don't go in and just think just because you can show up that everything's going to be all right. And be the advocate. You don't have to be nasty or mean or anything else, but you need to be sure that your child and your child's position is understood, even if it may not be what you think is necessarily in the best interest. And look at the suggestions on the bench card. They really are, I think, excellent about how this process can work much better. Finally, I'll just talk a little bit on this last slide. One of the things that I'm doing in my semi-retirement is I'm on the board of a low-power radio station here in Cambridge, WHCP radio. It's only 100 watts, but we stream on the internet. And what I've been doing is collecting stories about foster care from alumni of care and people who have been working in the system. And we play these, air these on WHCP at a midday program. And then we also stream them. And then after we air them, we put them on the website of Foster Care Alumni of America, which is at fostercarealumni.org. Those stories, go there and listen. Those stories will give you other ideas about the challenges that foster youth are facing, things that you might be able to do better to help them make their way through foster care and have success. If you have questions of me, give me an email, send me an email at the email address there. Be happy to talk further about particular questions or problems. In particular, the ICPC process, it's one of the things that I have been trying to help improve for years, and some improvement has occurred, but happy to help you with a particular case to try to give you some direction on what you might do. So Skylar, I'll turn it back to you. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you for that, Steve. So we're going to move on. Our next speaker is Kristen Kelly from the American Bar. Kristen, turning it over to you.
Thanks so much, Skylar. Hi, everyone. My name is Kristen Kelly. For the past 10 years, I've worked as an attorney at the American Bar Association Center on Children and the Law, based in Washington, D.C., and among other a project there called the Youth Engagement Project, which is focused primarily on improving outcomes for older youth in foster care. Our primary focus is on supporting adolescent permanency. So that means making sure that the court, which we think of as including judges, attorneys, and other advocates and court staff, never give up on finding permanency for all youth in care. One of the most major strategies that we use to try and support adolescent permanency, which is consistent with what Judge Rideout and Skylar have talked about today, is making sure that youth are both empowered and also engaged to participate in court. And one of the main strategies we do is trying to help courts to understand how to be more youth-friendly. So I have a wide variety of things that I could talk about. I just have a very short time today, so I wanted to do is just briefly highlight some of the tools and resources that we have available. They're all available on our website. I think Skylar is going to be pulling up the website. And also the PowerPoint will be available to you, which includes all of the tools and resources as first. So as Skylar said, the Strengthening Families Act has a lot of important provisions related to older youth. And so in January of this year, January of 2016, we released a guide specifically for courts, which, as I said earlier, means not just judges and attorneys, but all court staff and advocates on the new law. It goes through the various older youth provisions of the law, and it talks about specifically what the court can do to try and make sure that that's implemented effectively. It includes a variety of checklists and tools, as well as some questions specifically for youth themselves. In addition to this tool on the new law, we have a wide variety of other resources related to youth engagement in court. I'm going to go through just a few of them, but as I said, there's a lot more that are available on our website that I encourage you to look at. The first that we have available is a technical assistance guide. So this is really a compilation of a lot of the tools and resources that we've developed over the past number of years through the support of Casey Family Programs. We put this out collaboratively with the National Council on Juvenile and Family Court Judges. It includes policies, sample court policies. It includes a variety of bench cards, including some bench cards that are broken down by age, both all the way from age 0 and then through beyond 18. It includes some things that judges should be looking for developmentally at each of those ages. Along with the technical assistance guide, we also put out an evaluation guide. And this is recognizing how important it is to try and monitor progress and look and see what the data is showing us. And so it puts out some strategies about how to collect data about the number of youth that are attending court, how to measure whether they're being actively involved and empowered. And then the final document is a national data summary. There's not a lot of research that's out there on youth involvement in the court process, but what we did is put together in one summary what is out there. And it's not just the research studies that are out there and the social science, it's also the places that we've worked to do pilot projects to try and collect data. The one thing that you'll see in that national analysis of the data that's out there is a pretty consistent message. And the message almost everywhere is that youth want to attend court when they know that their court hearings are going on. They want to go, that when they do go, they're happy to be involved, and that they feel that the judges have better information to make decisions when they're actually involved and empowered in their court hearing. Next slide, Skylar. So in addition to these national tools, I wanted to highlight a lot of tools that we have from in-depth state work that we've done. We've worked with a wide variety of states on trying to set up youth-friendly court processes. Kansas and New Jersey, we did in-depth pilot site work, and the results were really remarkable. I encourage you to go onto our website. We have a variety of reports that summarize the work that's gone on there, and our partners in those states really took this on as an issue and just ran with it. They pretty much recreated the entire court process to make sure that it was youth-driven and that youth were not only attending but actually empowered in those court hearings. And the data that's out there, which is available on our website, really shows that it's been a huge shift and that the youth felt absolutely more empowered in the process. The tools that are on our website, again, these are specific to Kansas and New Jersey, but all are free and open and available to anyone, and they all could be easily adapted to your own state to try and be useful to you. We have a huge series on videos for youth themselves. The idea there is that we were hearing from our interviews and focus groups with youth that they would feel more comfortable if they knew what to prepare for ahead of time. And so we put together videos for youth that talk through what the court process looks like, who the different people are there, what they should do beforehand to prepare for court. And again, those are all available on the website. We also know that oftentimes youth, as Skylar said, didn't even know that they had court hearings, weren't invited to attend. And so one of the most important things of making sure that youth attend their court hearings is making sure that they receive notice of those court hearings, and making sure that that notice that they receive is understandable and written in youth-friendly language. And so there's samples of youth-friendly notice letters available on this website. Another thing, as I talked about, it's important to know how you're serving the youth that attend. And so one of the best ways to do that is to survey youth themselves about how their experience was. Until you know how their experience is, it's hard to make changes. And so we have a variety of surveys for youth, for attorneys of the youth, for judges themselves, for caseworkers, to try and get their feelings about youth engagement in court and try and be able to measure progress for yourself. Next slide, please. So I have my contact information there. I just wanted to go over very briefly some of the tools and resources that we have available. They're all free and available on our website, but we as a project are so passionate about this. It's something that we've been working on for many, many years, is the importance of never giving up on permanency for youth and making sure that as one strategy to try and do that, that we make sure to get youth involved in those court hearings. So I really strongly encourage you, please contact me, reach out by phone or email if you have any questions, if you'd like to learn more about the work that we've done in states in depth, or if there's anything that we can do to help you, I'm absolutely here and happy to help. Thanks so much.
Thank you for that, Kristen. Just so you guys know, those links within the document, you can copy and paste those on the downloadable version that is available online. We will send you an email after this presentation with all of that information. And remember, you can also download the bench card and the full VFA permanency publication from our website as well. Next, we're going to turn it over to Ani Keen. I did want to remind you guys, though, that in the right-hand corner, there's a questions tab. If you have any questions, feel free to type those and we'll answer those. Our next speaker is Ani Keen with You Gotta Believe in New York City. And she's an amazing young woman who has also lived within the systems. And Ani, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ani Keen. I work for You Gotta Believe. I am the director of the Nobody Ages Out Youth Movement. I entered into foster care when I was 17 years old and aged out at 21, and decided to get adopted, legally adopted by my foster parent at 22, and it was finalized at 24 years old. I have over 15 years working in a foster care system, and my main mission and goal is to educate all the professionals in the child welfare system about the importance of finding families for all the youth in care, and also talking to the youth currently in care to let them know that it's a right for them to have a family, and it is definitely possible. So what is asked for engaging youth in their regarding to court is to promote a positive attitude towards permanency. All professionals and family in the importance of family. It is a topic that is really not in, it has been recently, like for over the past 5 years, I've seen an increasing amount of professional, more interesting and engaging youth more about conversation about family. But we do really need to do more in believing that philosophy. And once we do that, conversations will improve and our attitudes will follow. When I was going to court, I came into care at 17, but when my workers or my legal aid at the time would say, "You don't want to be adopted, right?" So even though I didn't really understood what that was, it was the language and the attitude behind it said to me that it was hard or impossible due to my age. Prioritizing permanency, NAO's most important goal. Child welfare professionals is really important for us to really prioritize finding families for older youth. Because we're in a crisis of wondering what's going to happen to the next generation of youth that are aging out of foster care, I think that us as in the child welfare system really do put a lot of focus on making sure everything is intact, making sure that job applications, sure that the youth have jobs. But unfortunately, I don't know about anywhere else. I know here in New York City, we are facing a housing crisis. So there's not a lot of houses for youth that are aging out of care every year. So if we focus on families, then that will really support, the families will support the youth, and they have to leave the homes until they are able-bodied individuals. And as a result of the housing crisis, like I said, we're always going back to family. So instead of letting instead of extending the youth stay in care, to find them with their foster homes, we need to really encourage conversations and find out who's important in their lives. And I know, of course, they do make sure and check to see if adoption work is being done or what has been done. But I think that more questions need to be asked as better, more guidelines on what the worker is actually doing. My worker, I noticed how it's
Hey, Ani, I think we lost you. Are you able to? Oh, looks like we lost our panelist. I do apologize about that. She'll be jumping on. Oh.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So you can bounce to so the NEO advocates provide profound trainings for professionals in the child welfare system. The advocates share their personal stories and the impact the court has made in their lives. The court officials leave with a better understanding of the impact and their decisions made, and the outcomes that foster alone face. So 4 steps the judges and court professionals can take to promote permanency for youth in the foster care system. We can move on to the next slide. Can you move on to the next slide? Asking additional questions to ensure permanency work is being done. Recruitment is everybody's job, and it can be done by having an open, consistent dialogue about the important people in youth lives. Revisiting questions is extremely important because an aunt or uncle that didn't get along with, 2 years ago, we may be the best of friends now. So it's extremely important to revisit the questions. Don't take no for an answer. When I was in care, someone asked me if I wanted to be adopted. The tone in which they used made me want to say no, but in all honesty, at 17 and 18 years old, I did not know or understand what adoption was or meant. So that was a big one. And no can mean at least one of the following things. You don't want to reject your biological family, right? And as an advocate, one of the things that I do is I tell you that it's not rejecting your family, but it's adding on to your family. And more youth are being more open to having a conversation about family. Youth don't want to be rejected themselves, right? The tone in which we use is extremely important because our voice, our words are saying one thing, but our body language is like off-putting, or we don't really believe it. Then the youth picks up on that, and they don't want to be rejected. So it's really important for workers to believe that it is possible, because if you don't believe it, the youth will know it because it was shown. Also, youth or workers are afraid to bring up adoption or families because youth have already been adopted and then rejected. Oftentimes with the youth that we work with now, the ones that have been adopted, is changing our language, changing the conversation. And I may not say a family or a parent, but I will ask them would they like an adult that they can live with that will be unconditionally committed to them for a lifetime. And they are more than open and willing to have a conversation with me about what that might look like. So check the permanency planning is being done well. Can we go to the next slide? Okay. So like I stated before, it's really important that we ask more questions about what is going on with the permanency aspect of the youth. We need to do more than just making a video and posting it, or more than just taking a picture of the youth and posting it and saying that we have done all that we can to find this youth a forever family. We need to encourage conversation. We need to revisit questions, and we need to believe it ourselves for us to see the system change, and encourage youth to speak up about their permanency future. And judges ask the worker what has been happening with the permanency future of this youth, but it's also important that we ask the youth what's going on for them and what they see is going on with their permanency future as well.
All right. Thank you, Annie. I do apologize for the technical issues we're having with some of the sound in the background. When technology works, it works. When it doesn't, sometimes it really doesn't. But thank you, Annie, for your experience. If you want to reach out to Ani, you can through the You Gotta Believe website, and we want to give a thank you to them. We also wanted to do some special thank yous to Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption for supporting Voice for Adoption's permanency project, to the True North Group for helping us to create the publications, former Voice for Adoption, Nicole Dobbins, the Congressional Caucus on Adoption Institutes, specifically their interns for their wealth of knowledge and their ability to communicate and speak on behalf of the nation's youth, the North American Council on Adoptable Children for providing our webinar service today, You Gotta Believe, and of course, most importantly, we also want to thank our youth. Now, we did have a couple questions coming in. One question we had was from Susan, and I think this may be a great question for either Kristen or for Steve. Is adoption possible at any age, no matter what state? So in Montana, I was adopted at 25, and so I imagine, is this possible completely around the entire country?
I don't know. This is Steve. I'm not sure that every state has the same laws because we have 50 states. We have 50 different laws, and some states may be different than others in that regard. Kristen may be able to help you more, but I am finding more and more states are allowing for adoptions once even though the child has turned an adult or is over 21. But maybe Kristen could help on that.
Yeah, Judge Wright, I was going to say the same thing. I think that there is a growing trend recognizing that this is a big issue. There are a lot of states that are changing their laws, but no, it's not that in all 50 states you can get adopted as what it's called is non-minor adoption. In most places, adoption was set up for when you're under the age of 18, and so states have had to change their laws in order to allow for older youth adoption, and it's not the case that all states allow for it right now.
Do you guys by chance know, for example, one state that was in question was Maryland off the top of your head because we're on the East Coast? Do you know if Maryland allows adult adoptions or older adoptions?
I don't know, but I think that I would be able to find out, and I could let you know, Skylar. I could look into it and let you know. But I'm also not aware of any summary or anything like that that shows all 50 states. I just know from my own personal experience working in different places that some places allow it and others don't.
Yeah, and I can tell you from, oh, go ahead, Mary.
Oh, I was just going to say that I know a young person over 18 who's in the process of being adopted in Maryland, so I believe it's possible there.
Okay, thank you. And that's Mary from NACYAC, by the way. I know that when I got adopted, by the way, if you're looking at court processes and costs and all of that, is that during my adoption at 25, the courts were very happy to do it. Financially, it was a cheaper experience than most court proceedings or when it comes to the lawyer. It was just one document, and they also kind of made it a big deal. When I was adopted, it was something where I did it on Christmas Eve. The courtroom was filled and they were very excited, and the judge really got into it with family pictures, all of that type of celebration too. So I think it's something different that often the courts, you don't get to see the positive side of the courts, but the court also has a chance to make that a very memorable experience during the adoption as well. Sorry, I'm reading one more question here. It's still coming in. Are there, besides adoptions for older youth, what are some more viable, because we talked about legal guardianship, what are some other options that, if adoption isn't an option, that we can still provide the youth with some kind of permanency as they're preparing to age out? Steve or Kelly, what do you think? Or Ani?
Well, there's a hierarchy of what is permanency, and certainly adoption or placement with a relative, that sort of thing is the more permanent, and you then get less permanent. To me, the bottom line is, if there is a caring adult out there who is committed to that child, or more than one caring adult, and is willing to be there for that child and young adult and adult for the remainder of their lives, I mean, that's permanency. It's not the court sanctioned or sanctioned by the federal government or the state laws, but it's having that relationship that is so vitally important.
Thank you for that.
Skylar, can I just highlight one tool that's out there that I think is really excellent and I've seen used in a lot of different places? It was put out by Foster Club, and it's called the Permanency Pact. And I think we as attorneys and in the court process, and to some extent even caseworkers, always think of permanency as you have to find someone that will be the forever family. And it's hard sometimes when you start looking for the person who's willing to adopt someone or willing to take guardianship. It's sometimes starting a little smaller than that and then working your way up as youth are nurturing those relationships is a better way to find permanency for some youth. And so what the Permanency Pact does is it's a form that is really youth-driven, and the idea is that the youth will go through and try and identify some people. Maybe it's a teacher or a counselor at school, or a coach, or someone that the youth knows, or even a neighbor that they might have not a close interaction with, but enough of an interaction that they feel that they would put them in their circle. And the idea is, don't ask them whether or not they're willing to adopt you, but instead say, would I be able to, on breaks from school, come and do laundry at your house? Or could I come to dinner at your house during the week? To try and really work on building and nurturing those relationships smaller rather than starting right away with who in my life would be willing to adopt me right now. And so I always highlight that as one tool that I think is really out there that kind of shifts the focus a little bit and might help to identify some other long-term adult connections. Because as Judge Rideout said, there is sort of the permanency hierarchy that the court needs to look at, but a lot of that is also trying to build those adult connections so it's not just one person, but that so that youth have a whole network of adult connections to support them through their life.
Yeah, exactly. I also wanted to, up here on the thank you slide that we forgot, is we wanted to thank all the judges and CASAs that also contributed to our permanency publication as part of the review and editing team and for input. They're actually the reason for the creation of the benchmark or bench card, is because they wanted something that was a quick to go-to guide. We did have another question come in that said, is this information being used and provided to DSS workers, judges, and magistrates? We have shared this with, oh goodness, this is an acronym, the NCJCJ. Do you know, Kelly, can you, or Kristen, can you, do you know what that stands for?
Yeah, the National Council on Juvenile and Family Court Judges. So it's a membership organization of judges from around the country. Judge Rideout, as he mentioned, was actively involved, and it's judges who focus just on children and family law.
Yeah, so we actually got the bench cards into their hands at their national conference in July in California. We've also had this information sent out through Health and Human Services to all of the court improvement programs around the country. It's also been distributed through our listservs and social media. If you would like to send this out, because it's on our website, it's free to download, so you can download and email it out. You can send our website out. I do actually have some remaining hard copies of the bench card, and if you would like to request a copy, you can just shoot us an email. My email is voiceforadoption@gmail.com. But you can also go to our website. Again, that's voiceforadoption.org. All right. Do any of our speakers want to have any final comments or anything they would like to add?
Skylar, this is Steve. I'd just like to talk a little bit about National Adoption Day. It is an event, it's an Adoption Saturday, where courts all around the country come together and celebrate adoptions by finalizing adoptions. We started this in Alexandria probably 15, 20 years ago now, and it really proved through with our getting our Department of Social Services and CASA program together. They got so excited about the whole, getting the adoptions finalized in order to be ready for this event, that it really helped to promote adoptions, and the events themselves are just, they're heartwarming. I mean, the stories that are told, the tears that are shed, the smiles that you see are just terrific, and it really helps to honor not only the adoptee, but it helps to honor the social worker who did such a great job in finding the forever family, or the people to adopt. It honors the lawyers who are representing the child or the guardian ad litem, the parents who helped make this all come together. So I'm sure there are, and I don't have a website for it, but if you just Google National Adoption Day, there will be tons of information that would come up about that. And I encourage you to take a look at it.
Excellent. And I actually already got a request for a bench card, so we'll be getting that out to Brittany. Are there any final questions or any other comments? All right. Well, I want to give, again, a special thank you to all of our speakers today, Kristen, Steve, and Ani. All of our combined efforts around the country, I think, are definitely a change in, I call it a change in the winds, especially from when I was a child and entered care in the 90s. That there are some really unique stuff that is happening, and that this law which has initiated kind of a different way to look at what permanency is and foster care is. It's just the beginning. And so I know that there's more work to be done. There's more initiatives going on. And thank you for Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption for supporting this effort and elevating this to the next level. Again, if you would like to download our free publications, they're available. The website is up on your screen. For those that did not attend our webinar today, you'll be receiving a link to download the publications. And then everybody else who was on the call, we will have the downloadable PDF of the publications as well as this presentation in recorded form as well as the PDF. Thank you, everybody. And oh, go ahead.
This is Steve. One more thing. If you have that story to tell, please go to the WHCP website and just search for Foster Stories, which is the program that we run. I really am looking for more stories and would welcome you contacting me about that so that we can try to get you to tell your story. Thanks.
Exactly, and I did put that website up for Steve's radio show. It's a great way to do advocacy, but also to communicate to the greater community the importance of adoption and family. All right. Well, thank you everybody for your participation on today's webinar. I am going to conclude it. Thank you for everything, and have a good day, everyone.